Hi, it's Dr. Centeno, and instead of a blog, I'm going to do a YouTube video today on how you can be an educated consumer of PRP injections, either for orthopedic problems like knee issues or spine problems. And this was really prompted by a discussion I saw in a Facebook group where a patient has a meniscus tear, having trouble being active, and a physician quoted them a specific price for 3 shots of PRP, which is really quite low, and $700 for 1 shot of umbilical cord stem cells. Now, obviously, you know through my blogs and our published research in the top orthopedic journal that there is no such thing as umbilical cord stem cells here in the United States. Wharton's jelly is a scam. It does not contain mesenchymal stem cells at all that are living and viable. So right there, we know this doctor is kind of a scammer because he hasn't gotten the memo and hasn't read the peer-reviewed literature. But forgetting about the scam part of this, let's just look at that concept of how does this patient know that they're actually getting a good value for their, whatever it is, $1,823. And that's the focus today. What is it that you're getting when you purchase PRP? So the hardest thing for patients to understand is that PRP does not equal PRP. What one clinic calls a PRP shot can be vastly different in quality than what another clinic calls a PRP shot. And so to know what you're getting, to compare apples to apples or oranges to oranges, you need to follow 3 simple rules. You need to understand the type of PRP, the dose of the PRP, which is the number of platelets you're getting, and the accuracy of the injection. So the type of PRP in general for 95% of orthopedic issues should be amber in color. That's called leukocyte poor. The dose, if you're middle-aged or older, and most of the people wanting PRP are in this age group, should be 10 to 15 times concentrated. So high dose or high concentrated PRP that delivers a lot of platelets to the site. And the accuracy of the injection should be high. So you want to make sure that you've got ultrasound and or fluoroscopy guided injection procedures. Now on the other side, on the flip side of that, you don't generally want red or leukocyte-rich PRP. You don't want low-dose PRP, and you don't want somebody blindly injecting your knee or your back without guidance. So let's first go through cheap PRP, that red stuff, low-dose stuff with a very low accuracy injection. So I'm going to give you 2 examples here. The first example is a knee meniscus tear like we looked at, and an orthopedic surgeon that uses what's called Arthrex ACP, and it's a kit that only concentrates platelets to 1.5 times concentration, so very, very low dose. And it's a blind injection. The orthopedic surgeon has never learned to use ultrasound or fluoroscopic guidance, so they just kind of palpate and stick it in there. So that's cheap PRP. That's a cheap product that's less likely to be effective, so it should have a cheap price. Example 2 in the spine would be the problem being treated as lumbar degenerative disc disease. You go see a physician's assistant. They use a Harvest Terumo Smart Prep 3 kit, which only concentrates red or leukocyte-rich PRP to 3 times. Again, far below what's usually needed. And there's a blind injection, and what they're mostly doing is injecting muscles and ligaments. They're not injecting the facets. They're not injecting around discs and nerves. They can't do that. So again, this is a cheap product that should have a cheap price. Now, a simple dosing metric here is important to understand. How do I know which kit they're using, or if it's a good kit or a bad kit, or if it's high dose or low dose PRP? Well, there's a way that you can easily find out, and let's use that knee example. So in that Arthrex ACP kit, or in the other Terumo kit, that Harvest kit, they're not going to draw much blood in order to get to the PRP. The more blood you draw, the more you can concentrate the platelets, the higher dose the PRP. So for instance, if we're going to see someone's knee injected and they're only drawing 1 to 2 tubes of blood, then you're getting cheap low-dose PRP. On the other hand, if they're drawing 10 to 15 blood tubes to inject just your knee, then you're getting high-dose PRP. Obviously, the more things being injected, the more tubes you got to draw. So that's a simple way without having to know all the kit details like I do. And then now let's go over more expensive PRP. Again, we talked about that amber color PRP, or what's called leukocyte poor PRP. We talked about high dose PRP, so we're getting 10 to 15 times concentrated, so a lot of blood is being drawn, and a highly accurate injection to put that stuff exactly where it needs to go. So let's go through example 1 of more expensive PRP. We've got the same patient, same meniscus tear. But this time we're using Regenexx Amber PRP at 10 to 14 times concentration. So much higher concentration of platelets, many more platelets being injected at that site. So we have an expensive PRP being used here, not a cheap one. And the physician took the extra time to really examine that knee, not the cursory, quick orthopedic surgery, boom, 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 in and out type examination. But what was detected was there was a stress ultrasound examination done on the knee. It showed that the meniscus was unstable, the MCL ligament was loose, the ACL ligament was loose. So now we got all these injection targets for this more expensive PRP that were totally missed by the orthopedic surgeon in the cheap PRP. And now we've got precise ultrasound guided injection into the meniscus, into the coronal and collateral ligaments. And we have to use C-arm fluoroscopy in order to be able to get high-dose PRP into that loose ACL. So as you can see here, this treatment looks nothing like the other treatment. Obviously, this treatment is going to be more expensive, as it should be, because we're using expensive PRP, we're drawing more blood, we're doing lab work to get this PRP, we're doing a full physical exam here, finding all the different things that are wrong with the knee, and then we're precisely injecting all those different things. So let's look at example 2 now. Same patient with lumbar degenerative disc disease, but now instead of just seeing a physician's assistant, we're seeing a physician specialist, a PM&R interventional spine physician. They're using a double spin M-side kit to get to 9 to 10x amber PRP. So much higher concentration, much more blood is being drawn here. And from that, they're creating platelet lysate, they're creating PRP and PPP. So we have 3 different blood products that are being injected, not just one. And they're using fluoroscopy-guided, contrast-confirmed injections into those degenerated facet joints of the high-dose PRP. They're also injecting epidural around irritated nerves, confirming that on fluoroscopic guidance with contrast. They're also using ultrasound to inject that platelet lysate into the loose ligaments that are leading to degenerative instability. And they're using PPP injections into the atrophied multifidus muscles to help stabilize the spine. So again, a completely different treatment, an expensive treatment to do, but a much more comprehensive treatment with a much higher quality product. So the moral of this story is that in medicine, you tend to get what you pay for. There is no real Walmart of medicine. I know that's hard for people to get their heads around. People are used to going to Walmart and getting a cheap consumer good that might be more expensive at another store. It's the same thing. But that's not what's happening in the PRP world. And it's completely different here. If you purchase a cheap PRP, you're going to get a cheap PRP. You're going to get a low-dose PRP. You're going to get no accuracy at all. You're going to get a quickie exam where they're not injecting the right structures. All of those things are going to happen to you, and you won't know it unless you watch this video. So please share this video with your friends that are considering getting platelet-rich plasma or PRP, because it's essential to understand that you get what you pay for, and you got to seek out those doctors that are doing this stuff right. They're not differentiating themselves on price because their practices are full. They get great results. And if you shop on price for PRP, you're more likely than not going to get a cheap product at a practice that has poor results because they deliver cheap care. So that's the moral of the story. You get what you pay for. And there's a reason why certain clinics can offer PRP with a, quote, business model. The business model is bad care. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.